Hello there, sword friends. Today I have something different for you. It is at least blade adjacent. It is a safety razor from Tatara Razors. And before you click off, as this is quite a departure from reviewing a Japanese style sword, this is the Masamune Razor from Tatara Razors. And if you're not getting from the namesake, Tatara would be the furnace that Japanese sword steel is typically made in, and Masamune is one of the most famous swordsmiths out there. Tatara takes some inspiration from Japanese swords, and so if you're interested in safety razors, trying one out, you'll get to hear this noob's perspective on trying a safety razor for the first time and the various lessons learned along the way. Along with that, I will go over the bits and bobs and fits and features of this razor if you're interested in getting it so you can see it in some sort of closer detail. But do know, this isn't going to be my normal shtick. I'm going to talk about this razor, but I'm not equipped to do a full review. This is my first safety razor. I have no idea if it is worth the money. I have no conceptual idea of the market, as this is the first product of its kind that I've tested or used in my life. And also, subsequently, I'm not going to whack it against a metal pole because that would be, well, maybe debatably useful for a sword, but certainly not useful for this. I don't think anyone is wondering which razor is going to hold up the best as a zombie apocalypse weapon. But does this hold up as a product? How does it work? If you had any interest in seeing closer details, I will share that with you, as well as my thoughts at the end around using it and all of that kind of stuff. So before I get into it, a couple quick notes. One, this is a review sample. It was sent to me from Tatara along with a few other products. They sent with their synthetic brush as well as some soap in order for me to get the full-on experience of using the safety razor. So these are samples, keep that in mind. The other bit to note is my shaving experience. So as I kind of alluded to, have not used a product like this before. The entirety of my life I've used cartridge razors with very rare exception. I have used some other razor products, like a pocket knife to shave my face on the rarest of occasion, but with any regularity, not really the case. I've really only used cartridge razors, and I can tell you a little bit about what I've used in the past because I think it bears well, it's useful context. If you are a shaving aficionado, you can certainly tell from this that I am not. When I was 18, I was sent a Gillette Mach 3 razor. I used that for about 15 years, and then I saw a funny commercial on the internet where it was a $1 Shave Club razor, and the cartridges were a little cheaper, and it seemed funny. So I switched to that, and I stopped using it maybe a couple years ago because even though I was on the plan that they offered, because it's like a subscription model that they do, I found the razor blades accumulating, and even though I canceled a few years ago and I was on the subscription model that had the least replenishment as infrequently as possible, they still accumulated because I shave like an idiot, and that I don't apply any lubricant or soap to my face. I get out of the shower, shave dry. Sometimes I don't even take a shower and I just shave dry, or sometimes I do it in the shower. On the rarest of occasion, there might be some excess shampoo that I'll smear on my face, call it a day, and I switch the cartridge when more than half my face comes with it. So I don't really invest in this experience. I don't really care about it. As long as my wife wants to give me loving kisses, I call it good enough. And as long as my face is not too bloody where it appears on camera for my meeting, I'm fine. Moving to a safety razor is a different experience, and I'll talk on that. But as I point out various critiques or things that I like and don't like, hopefully this explains to you that while I have shaved for more than a few decades, I don't invest in the experience. I don't know much about it, and I don't have the greatest understanding of the available products, given that really primarily for any length of time I've only used two. So with that context out of the way, I can actually talk about some of the products that were sent. This is the Masamune Razor. It is $174, and it has a few options if you go to the website, which will be linked in the description down below. You can adjust the comb, you can get a closed or open one. This one came with the closed one. It has some notches in it. I think they have one that doesn't have notches. I could be wrong on that. There are different razor handles as well. There's the adjustable one, which brings this comb kind of in and out, as well as one called the Nodachi, which is appropriate. Nodachi is usually like a bigger sword, and it is a bigger handle. In retrospect, I wish I had requested the Nodachi and the little pedestal stand that it sits on. One, because it looks really nice. Two, because I think my big sausage fingers would have fit in that better. And three, because it would have been easier to photograph. They also sent me a brush, and this is the Masamune Synthetic Brush, and it is my first brush, but I can tell you when my wife picked this up, she was like, ooh, it feels substantial, and they match. I believe they offer them in different finishes as well, so there's like a black one and a titanium one. I don't know if the titanium is more useful, but it's certainly more expensive. Regardless, this is the Masamune stainless steel razor, and it will be linked in the description down below if you're keen on taking a look at it. They also sent me a few other things. And one is these blades. They're Astra blades, I think is what they're called, if I'm pronouncing it right. It's all I've used. I've heard that different razors have different edges and maybe cut differently, so perhaps in the future, if I get around to buying more razor blades, which inevitably I'll have to do, if they cut differently or I find one that suits my face better, perhaps I'll make an update if anyone's interested. It's also worth noting the packaging that's sent here. This is like a cork background, but overall the packaging of these razors was really quite pleasant. So if you're giving them as a gift to somebody else or to yourself, I found that they were really nice looking. It came wrapped in, it had a little wax stamp, and it had some nice paper around it, and it was a little bit of a pleasant experience opening it up. They also sent me some soap, which I don't think is something that is offered from Tatara, but I told them how I shave my face, and they said, well, we'll send you some soap, because I don't think they trusted me to make my own decisions there, which was definitely the right choice. Anyway, that's what was sent. That's what they cost. Hopefully that helps in terms of what we're going to be going over today. And I'll start with the Masamune Razor, and I'll go over bits and bobs and fits and features. Then I'll talk about the experience of shaving. So depending on what you're interested in, if you were looking at this product and you wanted to see it in greater detail, that's what I'm going to do now. If you're trying to hear my Newbish perspective on moving from cartridge razors to safety razors and some of the lessons along the way, then that'll come in the latter half of the video. Anyway, bits and bobs and fits and features. So if I talk about the razor itself, let's start with the handle right here. Usually I start with the pommel, the end cap, the kashira on a Japanese sword, but this doesn't have one of those. The overall look, well, one thing I'm going to note is that this is handsome, right? Overall in appearance, it is a dainty, nice looking thing, but I don't see a Japanese style sword influence in it necessarily. If anything, it does look like what are they called, kanabo, or the wooden bats or war bats that Japanese folks might have used, because they would usually have these little risers on them that would protrude outward rather than kind of be like a divot that goes inward like this razor has. But it reminds me a little bit of a Japanese style weapon, but not necessarily a sword. The handle also doesn't have the erratic pattern that like a samegawa skin, which is a ray skin that would be wrapped around a Japanese style sword handle would have. Anyway, the namesake says Masamune, but I'm not seeing, other than there's a sharp edge here, the influence. I could be just dense though. Anyway, the handle itself is still a pretty thing. It is kind of ovoid in profile this way, but round. And one thing I would note about the handle, if I could offer a very novice suggestion, is that my big dumb sausage fingers kind of had trouble hanging on to this, specifically when I got soap on them. And it might be because I'm new and clumsy. I've used this for about 2 weeks, and the soap, lathering it and putting it on my face is a new experience. And when my hands are soapy, this is pretty slippery and hard to hold on to, and I have trouble using it. So what would happen if my hands were slippery is, instead of rinsing them off like a smart person would, I would just kind of white knuckle it and hold it. But in doing that, I really can't, because my muscles are tensed up, let the razor do the work and fall. So I would cut the crap out of my face. So later I learned that lesson, and I would rinse my hand off, and then it was fine. If my hands were wet, it wasn't slippery, but when they were soapy, this was a little tricky to hang on to. I think it would be remedied in 2 potential ways. One, if this were ovoid, that might do something. Instead of the divots like a golf ball that are on here, if it were perhaps protruding in some way, or even if they did like a simulation of idomaki, or the silk wrap on a Japanese handle, that might offer a little bit more tactile sensation that would allow me to hang on to it a little better. Personally, ovoid grips I think are something that indexes well. I don't know why all safety razors are round. It seems to be the way just razors are. They're round instead of elliptical, or something that kind of locks into your hands a little better. But I digress. This is round, and that was something that I would suggest. The other thing that probably would have been helped is if I had asked for the nodachi, because my sausage fingers don't fit well on this. And if I hold it up here, I feel like I've got a hold of it, but I can't get the angle I want, so I got to kind of hold it down here, and then my little fingers don't do anything, and it gets slippery. I think if I had a bigger handle, it probably would have felt better. Anyway, it's round, it's very, very clean and nice, and I have also neglected this. I have hard water in my house. I've dropped it a few times, not necessarily intentionally, but I haven't avoided trying to use it like any other person would, and it's held up really well. It doesn't show, it looks brand new, frankly, so that's nice. Also, it is really well made. The kind of threading on this handle, it unscrews here, and then comes apart thusly. I didn't have any problem affixing new blades to this while I was using it. If my hands were soapy or wet, because I found I can get kind of 3 or 4 shaves out of each of these blades, and I learned that by trying to do 5 or 6 shaves with them. And so when my hands are soapy and I need to swap the blade out, this is really not a problem. It affixes tight, it threads really well. I haven't, despite any efforts, been able to cross thread it. It seems like a well-made, well-positioned kind of thing. But anyway, this more or less unscrews. There is a little hidden Easter egg here. There's the Masamune name as well as the logo of the Tatara shop. This comes apart and you put your safety razor head in here, and then you put them together. It fits like a glove. It's not kind of very nice, precise machining is done here. It has a smooth head and then these little rough cutouts, somewhat mirror the divots that are in the handle. And overall, I think it makes a very handsome package. They fit together really well. It bends the razor down and there's no kind of rattling. I also have tried pushing hard, which not recommended, and kind of letting it fall down. There's no problem getting it tight, but I don't feel the blade moving or this feels basically like a very stable object in my hand. At no point do I feel like the blade is flexing or moving or that my face is getting in the way. It's very tight, and if I let the blade do the work, it falls, and I'm not noticing any basic problems with the product itself. It doesn't vibrate, it doesn't loosen, and it doesn't the blade isn't moving around. Whatever mechanism they're using to apply pressure here applies it evenly, and the blade feels very, very stable. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about how that creates a bit of a learning curve for me, or at least contributes to it. But as a product, it's very stable. The mechanism that they use is simple, hard to screw up, and easy to use with wet hands. The head and whatnot is also smooth. There's not much more I can really show here. It's a pretty simple and small object, but it is handsome, it does the job, and it seems well thought out and manufactured. I would say that this little nubbin up here lets me get my fingers here. My hand kind of naturally wants to hold it this way, but I don't sausage finger shave well that way. So I think, again, for me personally, I would have liked to try the Nodachi, and if I could offer any suggestion, it would be to have something here that makes it feel a little grippier. If I go back to my other razor, right, my Dollar Shave Club razor, this feels cheap and non-substantial. It's much lighter in my hand, but with 2 fingers, I feel like I'm locked onto it. This gets a little squirrely and moves around in 2 fingers, but this rubber grippy substance that's on this razor really, from like any angle that I hold it, it feels like I can do the thing, and it feels connected to my hand like I would like. This is not as connected to my hand. It's substantial. It feels hefty and like a well-made thing, but it doesn't lock into my grip. So something to aid that. I've offered my suggestions already, but that is one thing that I noticed as a difference between the cartridge razor and the safety razor. Now, as I've compared safety razors online, I haven't used any of them, but I did a cursory look on Amazon and some other places for what do they cost, and they all seem to have round handles and be about the same size. Some are textured in different ways, some look like fancy pens, but it doesn't seem like many offer much to connect you to your hand. I don't understand that. At least when I'm using this, I want to have like a loose grip, and that means I want the handle to really have an kind of an innate feel of control and lock into my grip without me needing to really white knuckle or hold on to it, so I can kind of keep my hand loose and let gravity and the blade do the work. Enough on that point. The brush. This is the Masamune Synthetic Brush, and it is matching in terms of the appearance on the grip. It has the same little divots like a golf ball might that are cut in, and it has the same stainless steel appearance. It wraps around in such a way that there's something to kind of keep the foam from falling on your hands, but I didn't find that it was particularly successful. I'm learning how to lather my face like a child might, but I would often get soap on my hands, and that contributed to needing to rinse it off. It's worth noting as well that when you get this soapy, like a quick run under hot water, which I was running very hot water, which was kind of uncomfortable, so if I turned the temperature down a little bit so I could clean my hands off, the soap kind of just fell away from it rather quickly. So it doesn't retain soap and whatnot and so that at least was something nice. But I didn't find that this little guard on here prevented soap from going down onto my hands, at least not meaningfully. The brush is rather nice though. This is the only brush that I've used. My wife has more experience, I should say, with these kind of things, and she picked it up and said, this feels very nice. She might confiscate it from me. Anyway, the experience of, applying the lather to your face is pleasant. It's different for me. I'm figuring out how to do it. I'm figuring out how to use soap. The soap that was sent is got tallow in it, and so I have to kind of warm it up and do some things, and gradually figured out how to actually apply it and have it lather properly. But this is a pleasant experience. I don't notice anything that like pokes me. It's retained its shape, and I don't know what I'm doing. I clean it off rather aggressively in the sink when I'm done with it too, by applying pressure to the base of the sink with some water and swirling it around, and then I kind of just wring it out and flop it down, and it's held its shape reasonably well. It still has, well, I guess all of the dimension and rigidity that the brush had before. I haven't noticed errant hairs falling out or anything like that, and so it seems to be a reasonably well-made thing. I don't really know what to expect from these though, other than it's like a paintbrush for your face, so I'm a little lost on what critiques would be useful here. I just don't see it falling apart, and I see that it has the same tension that it did before, and now it smells like my soap, which is nice. All right, that's all the useful information that I can share with you about the product itself. So hopefully the close-ups, if you're interested in buying this particular razor, have been helpful to see it up close. What I can talk about now though is the noob's experience in moving from a cartridge razor to a safety razor, and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So right away, just some observations about using a safety razor over a cartridge razor. The blades themselves are a lot less expensive than cartridges are. The cartridges, even if you subscribe to one of these programs and stuff, are not inexpensive. These blades can be bought in bulk relatively cheaply, and they go kind of, I would say, 3 to 4 shaves. 5 was pushing it for me. Maybe not for you. I imagine there's some variation there, but I found that about 3 to 4 shaves is okay. 4 starts to push it, and then you replace it. The blades though are pretty cheap, pretty easy to swap out, and there's not a lot of garbage left over, and most of it I think is recyclable. Time. It takes more time to use this. So my cartridge razor, I'd slop over my face dry and kind of be done and on with my day, and it was a chore that was then out of the way. This is a little bit more of a commitment, but not a huge one. I would say I'm done in 5 minutes with the lathering and the 3 passes or something like that. I would say it's like a 5-minute ordeal, and it has some unexpected benefits, or things that I found unexpectedly as benefits. So I'll talk about that in a second, but more or less, there is a little bit more of a commitment. You got to apply some lather. I'm very fortunate to have gotten soap that I like, that lathered and didn't dry too quickly. You may want to experiment with your soap, because if it dried out too quick or didn't pass the wifey test, then you may need to try something different, and that could certainly throw off the experience of shaving. I was fortunate to have one picked for me that I really liked out of the gate, but the soap certainly makes a difference. I could not use this dry. If I just did my previous shaving process, it would end badly. I'd score my face up. It wouldn't be very comfortable. So out of the shower with a clean face, I would warm up the razor, put it underneath some warm water, apply the lather, which I gradually figured out how to use correctly and have it foam and lather correctly, and then go slow. So I was told to go slow, but despite being told that, I still applied more pressure than I should have, and I cut the crap out of my face. So really kind of letting the razor and the blade do the work, let gravity and the blade do the work. Go slow, find the right angle, and let the blade do the work is advice that is easy to hear and understand, but difficult to apply. I had to learn that lesson in blood. Hopefully you don't, but it's not so bad. You're probably going to have a few bad shaves, uncomfortable ones, but from there you figure out the angle, or at least I did pretty quickly, how to do it. You learn your lesson, and it is not particularly complicated from there. There is, as I mentioned, like a 5-minute time commitment. It's not a lot, but there's some pleasant aspects to it. So immediately, if I compare the safety razor to the cartridge razor, it doesn't give me as close a shave, which is likely on me. I've used this for roughly 2 weeks, and I'm certainly not an expert in it. I will likely find a way to give as close a shave as this does, or better, as I learn and grow with the experience here. But at the moment, I don't get as close a shave. It takes more time, and it's a lot more expensive. So what is the benefit over the cartridge razor, which can work in just about any environment, at least it did for me, is a lot easier to do. I don't cut myself as much, it doesn't take as much time, and it's cheaper, at least, potentially. The handle is certainly a substantial commitment. The blades themselves, though, are a lot less expensive, and this could definitely last you a lifetime, where I've had to replace the handles for my other blades a few times over the course of 30 years, granted. But anyway, the basic gist is that the experience takes 5 minutes. It's longer, but it's not an unpleasant experience. The ritualness of it is pleasant. You're massaging your face. It smells nice. It's not a bad thing, and it makes you feel like an adult. So there are some offsets to that time. The closeness of shave is something I'm learning. I don't have it now, but I'm confident that it can, because I've seen other people do it. So I think it's me learning. The unexpected benefit that I've really found is that it reminds me a little bit of the meditation I do in Iaido. So Iaido is the practice of Japanese-style swordsmanship, drawing and sheathing your sword, delivering a cut, and then you're doing this regimented set of movements. You're trying to do it, and there's a definition of perfection, and you're trying to achieve it. So much like the concentration I have when I'm practicing swordsmanship, where I'm trying to better myself as a martial artist, but most importantly, not cut myself with a 4-foot razor blade, I have to concentrate, and kind of the rest of the world falls away. I don't think about work. I don't think about all the other chores and things that I need to do in life. I'm just focused on not cutting myself and improving myself as a martial artist. This is a different but similar experience in that I am really focused not on improving myself as a shaving artist, but in achieving a close and good shave, but not cutting myself. And in doing that, I really have to concentrate on my angle. I have to concentrate on keeping my arm loose, and the rest of the world for just a few minutes falls away. And that brief pause in life, whether it be in the morning if I'm shaving or in the evening, is welcomed. I really love that about Iaido and swordsmanship and martial arts, that it requires my concentration, and kind of the rest of the world falls away, and it gives me just a breath that I get from shaving here. It requires concentration, not to hurt yourself. Not a whole lot of concentration, but some element of you're focused on the task to achieve a close shave and not slit your own throat. So to do that, I require some concentration, and that pause wasn't something I expected. It has persisted for the 2 weeks that I've used this razor pretty much every day or every other day, and has been, I think, the most welcome and appreciated aspect of using the safety razor. So that is the nuances and observations that I can share with you about a noob's take on moving to a safety razor. The next bit is, will I continue to use it? Well, I would probably travel with a cartridge razor. I have them. Not that I couldn't travel with this, but it's easier and less risky to travel with a cartridge razor in case I lose it or something happens to it, or I don't know, whatever. This is an expensive thing, and I have to use a brush, and it's a little bit more to carry in a bag. So travel, not that I couldn't do it, but I'd be less inclined to. The everyday shave, I'll probably continue with this, especially until I figure out how to get as close a shave as I have with my cartridge razor. If anyone's interested, let me know, and I can provide an update later if I ever achieve that level of mastery. Right now, my level of mastery is I don't lacerate my face. The first shave, I really cut my neck up. The second shave, there were red blotches, but by the third or fourth, I was pretty good. And now I've gotten pretty good at getting a wife-approved shave without cutting myself. So I'm happy with my white belt level of performance here. But I would like to get a closer shave and have it at least match. And I don't mind the experience. As I said, I welcome that kind of brief moment of pause where I'm concentrated on one thing, and that is welcomed in my life. The other bit I can share with you is, do I personally think it's worth it or not? And this is something that I include in most videos when I talk about swords, but I really struggle with here because I have less bearing on what the market is for safety razors or razors in general. It's certainly out of my realm of expertise. A cursory glance on Amazon looks like you can buy a safety razor for $20 or less. Does it work the same way? Probably not. The nuances and complexities of what make those good or bad, I honestly don't know. But what I can tell you is that this one seems well thought out. It is well designed. It is a good thing. It holds up well. It's forgiving, at least as much as it can be, in that I've dropped it. I've left it on hard water, and I haven't necessarily been particularly attentive in cleaning it and whatnot, and it seems to hold up, clean off, and perform whenever I need it to. I've talked a little bit about where I might suggest some improvements, but as I look at the safety razor market, all of them are round. Nobody seems to offer an elliptical handle. But I do think there's an opportunity to perhaps lean into some Japanese sword grip retention systems that were popular on Japanese swords. Maybe it's possible to mill out. I'm not sure if it's possible in the way they currently tool things, but as I look at the market, it looks like you can have them for way less money at $20 for a handle that doesn't look similar, but is similar in profile and shape and probably does at least a similar function. And they can certainly cost way more money than $175 or $300 or $400. This is certainly on the more expensive end of things, though. And the most I can say is that it is a nice thing. And hopefully the close-ups and whatnot that I've provided, and the fact that it works, one thing that I guess I've heard is that the blade can move around. It's not necessarily as secure. Sometimes they don't feel as weighty or comfortable. Sometimes they stain or rust. Sometimes there are easy ways for the mechanism that screws in and out to deplete or diminish over time. All of this seems really well thought out and manufactured. So in terms of being a well-made thing, I can certainly tell you it's that, but is it worth it? I'm not equipped to really answer it. For me, I would have struggled given that I had no interest in safety razors prior to this. I would have certainly struggled at the idea of spending $174 on this, and then another $85 on the brush. Cursory looks make it seem like that is not an unreasonable price to pay for a well-made razor, though. So it doesn't seem out of the ballpark, but it also, if you have only used cartridge-based razors and subscribe for $1 a month, it's probably going to be a tough sell. If any of the benefits or nuances of the experience have struck a chord with you, though, there are less expensive ways to get into trying it, and then perhaps something like this may be in your future if you enjoy it. All right, sword fans, hopefully the close-ups have given you some idea of what to expect if you choose to spend your money on products from Tatara. I think they're well-made items, and hopefully my camera work does service to that product and to you if you had questions about it. Likewise, if you've ever thought about using a safety razor, or if you're well experienced at it, hopefully my thoughts and observations have been useful in some way or entertaining at least. That's really all I have, though. If you have any questions, throw them in the commentary down below. I'll answer them if I can. Thank you again to Tatara for sending this my way. I've appreciated the experience. It's been new and different. Hopefully the video has been worthwhile. That's all I've got, though. Cheers, and thanks for watching.